Okay, well, for the rest of you, come in, get seated, and let's get this show on the road. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Let me set up the field. Okay, clean field. For those of you that are wondering, sound codes, sound creates vibration, which creates light, which creates color, form, and geometry. And so when you know the sound key codes, you can set up architecting new grids by understanding and learning the keytones. Scala bar, Excalibur. Who knows Excalibur's sword? Yeah. We found it and found it in the astral plane in England, and extracted it through my dear brother Sananda, who had the codes to collect it. And we then put that into the tour of Glastonbury and reactivated Avalon, 2016 I think it was. It was like epic, and then we made a code from it, Scala Bar. So you can say Scala, you want to do it together? Yeah. Let's do it, why not? Let's do it 3 times. Scala Bar, Scala. Have you seen the new show? Wasn't it amazing? Do it in your home when you get back. Yeah, do it in your home. It's going to clear the grids, clear the language, clear any distortions. I just gave a talk about by way of reversals and these types of things. It'll clean all that up and get you anchored into a bit of geometry for your home. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about the science of genetic divinity, more around driving your personal hologram. Oops, let me just go back one. That's sensitive in there. Here we go. Bit of time delay. Okay, so just quickly, I'm not going to go into my background too much because I've only got a short portal with you. So my soul signature is around a navigator, architect, and guardian. So navigator, I help individuals and groups into their sweet spot where their purpose, their passion, professions all come together and they align with their divine purpose and divine plan, and help build the morphogenic grids as an architect to align them vibrationally, harmonically, inductively wise, to key into that so that the frequencies match. And you know about the law of attraction, right? So that which vibrates as like upon itself is attracted. So then that creates the attractive fields, and you stop chasing life and start attracting it. And Guardian, I interfacing with the Guardian Alliance beings who are bringing forth the divine plan on our planet. So that's kind of a little of my background, and so this is how I've come to know some of the things I'm going to share with you, because I got trained in an initiation and apprenticeship up in the High Councils by the Guardian Alliance, who taught me some of the things I'm going to teach you. Okay, would you like to learn that? Yeah, beautiful. So just to quickly review some of the things I spoke about yesterday. Sound is, this matrix is made up of properties of sound, vibration, and light, and you've just experimented with sound frequencies. Sound sets the particles going, creates vibration. And so vibration then starts oscillating forward and back very, very fast and starts to create light. That light then can evolve into colour, form, and geometry. And these are the building blocks of the manifested reality. The physical reality, the physical things that are built are first built upon those morphogenetic fields. And I just gave a presentation next door that talked about how those morphogenetic fields have evolved from an old geometry into a new geometry that connects us into source, meaning now, as well as some of the other things that are going on, we're on an ascending planet. We're on an ascending consciousness on an ascending planet, meaning we are no longer swimming upstream in our consciousness, because before we were on a descending planet. Okay? something interesting happened in 2013. Some of you will be aware the big hoo-ha around 21st of December 2012. Yeah, who remembers that date? Okay, there's a lot of focus upon that date. I was on Machu Picchu doing some crazy stuff, bit of San Pedro and all that. A lot of fun. Working on the grids, keying into the Vatican, cleaning up that. But in January 2013, I didn't get a chance to speak about this previously, something incredible happened which guaranteed our planet's ascension. As well as these new geometries and other things that have been coming in, the Stargate spontaneously opening, we saw something that none of us knew about. You know, only the founder races put a fail-safe mechanism into our planet. It was a fail-safe in case ever it got to the point where our planet was not going to make the switch from descending to an ascending consciousness, because our planet wants to ascend. She wants to ascend up into Tara, her soul consciousness, and then into Gaia, her oversoul consciousness, and then into Aramentana, her avatar consciousness. But there's been a few interferences from that process happening. So spontaneously a Nomi particle activated, like this, January 2013, like an antivirus. And this antivirus then set in motion the opening of 5 giant crystal cathedral networks. And these crystal cathedral networks are a series of 5 giant mountain-sized crystal cathedrals underground, etherically, that were then also secreting and sending out plasma. And that plasma frequency, plasma, as some of you may know, is the fastest wavelength in the universe. And so that plasma started not only coming in from the stargates from outside, but happening from the inside out. So we can't escape all this plasma which is going, which is why consciousness is going so fast. Okay? Now we see it through the lens of our lifetime, but what happens when you take a look at a multi-generational perspective? Where do you think it's going to be in just 2 generations or 3 generations? I look at my children, how evolved they are. It's incredible, the consciousness that these beings are having. And it's our role as parents and as guardians to these incredible beings that we set them up in the most harmonically loving way so they feel safe and connected in their hearts to follow their life pulse and their path wherever it leads them. And so in just a few short generations' time, our planet's going to be completely transformed. Yes, there is some attempts to keep it under control, but it's going to fall away. Why? Because the morphogenetic field form-holding grids have changed not to allow that anymore. We're moving towards a Christic intelligence, a Christic consciousness. And so, Sarasota, Florida, there's a series of 5 crystal cathedral networks. Oslo, Norway, Sacred Valley, Peru, Great Pyramid, Giza, Egypt, and Bali. And I've been to a number of these doing work to activate those crystal cathedral networks because they need a bit of a hand boosting up to 100%. There might be 1 or 2 missions coming up. I've got a couple of places to go. Some of you may want to join me there with a group who do some of this work. It's quite fun, and the added benefit is that you go like that in your own consciousness acceleration, because of course all that frequency you're unlocking comes through your hologram first. So you go on this atomic acceleration. So we've got this kind of new energy, new geometry. We've got the true tree of life, which is a 12-tree grid. We are operating with a mathematical base 12 of this universe, not base 10. The original tree of life, which you know from the Kabbalah, is base 10. That's because the Anunnaki hacked in and mind-controlled the rabbis there to create a base 10 mathematics on the tree of life, which caps us at 10 dimensions of consciousness. This is a 12-tree grid. We went there November 11, just last year, anchored the 12-tree grid in. Now there's a form-holding field of frequency broadcasting through Jerusalem area of the 12-tree grid, which is actually our energetic architecture. The 12-tree grid sits beautifully over our own bioenergy field as well as over the entire universe. And so what's beautiful about that is that we're 12-dimensional beings. Okay, now a quick little image of our old matrix is that we have these 3 founding frequencies which are known as Source: Holy Mother, Holy Father, Divine Child. These 3 create imagine 3 pieces of rope, colours magenta, pale yellow and aquiline. Imagine them kind of merged together, like plaited together. So it's simultaneously 1 rope and 3 ropes. That's source code. And last presentation I gave that the source code is physically embodied in the flame of, and the emergence of diamonds, which are now broadcasting this frequency on our planet. And we have these 12-dimensional bands. You can see these colours here, the founding rays, then create the form-holding field for 12 dimensions of consciousness. We have 12 DNA strands, our original divine template as a divine human, as known as a diamond sun angelic diamond sun DNA template with 12 strands of energetic potential of our DNA. And most of my talk after this short introduction is going to be about how we activate that, how we access more dimensions of consciousness, because what ascension is absorbing and overriding the lower frequency bands into the higher frequency bands, transmuting them up and up and up. What multidimensional consciousness is simultaneously being aware not only what's going on here in the physical, but what's happening out here in these higher dimensional bands where there's higher quality spiritual information available for you to download and implement on the planet. Now, all that I've done is I've just mastered how to access my multidimensional consciousness. It's not because I'm especially talented, I promise you that. It is, though, because I'm especially dedicated. So here's my great question to you. Would you be prepared to do this trade? All your hopes, your ambitions, your dreams, and things you're longing to create in the world, here's the trade. Would you, in order to get that, wake up an hour early every morning and work on yourself? Hands up who would be prepared to do that. Okay. Because that's the first thing you have to decide. It's not going to come to you on a platter. You have to do the work. And so after this, I'm going to give you that opt-in, the Cristof.love/Unchain. I deal with usually quite a lot of high-end spiritual initiates who are really on the high end, but I wanted to come to this event because I really felt this community was on this acceleration of waking up. So I wanted to bring to you some of the best practices so that you don't have to try many things, just follow this path. I'm going to send to you what's called the morning ritual, and after working in this field for many years, the overwhelming feedback I get from people is that morning ritual changed my life. When I implemented this is the one thing in my spiritual practice that when I started doing, everything started accelerating because I do it in such a way that it activates natural law, puts your intention in alignment with natural law and starts activating those massive forces of divine principle in the universe to conspire in your favor. Then from there, you can start building yourself up and out. Okay, so please consider doing that, and if you are prepared to put an hour a day working on yourself, then very quickly you're going to completely have a new reality. I don't even recognize my life compared to when I'm a completely different being. There's a whole new consciousness coming through. Now, with these crystal cathedral networks that have opened, creating plasma frequency, the stargates, which have also spontaneously opened, we are now moving into what's known as a crystic source field. Previously, we had these dimensions of consciousness separated by magnetic repulsion zones, meaning we couldn't simultaneously experience all those dimensions at one time. What's happening now over time is all dimensions of consciousness are blending into one 12th dimensional field. What is that? The return of the Christ. That is the externalization of Christ consciousness, then as a broadcast signal. That broadcast signal is now becoming available for us, and all we have to do is that we're like an antennae. We have to attune our antennae to receive the signal. Just like your TV, right? When you're watching TV, you've got something on the channel there, you flick through it, and all that's happening is that some things in your TV are changing signal. You've got the transmitter, which has the same frequency as the signal that is being sent from the TV station. They're your emotions. Your antenna is your belief systems, attracting what it is you create, and your beliefs are formulated out of, your consciousness level, but also from your background of how your consciousness was evolved and developed as a young being in the template of your parents. And this is why many of us have struggled in our early years, because we grew up in quite a discordant kind of home life. Who connects with that? Your home life was challenging, a lot of aggression, anger, frustration, addiction in the home life, and that was the energetic template, because for the first 7 years of your life, you've literally got a video recorder recording and capturing everything that's going on for those 7 years, and you're absorbing it into your hard drive, your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is drawing upon all of those memories and fragmented memories, pulling them up into your kind of, short-term memories and belief systems, which then have your perceptions around the world. For example, it's not safe to love. Who knows that one? Who's been hurt by love before? And then closed our hearts because we believe that love isn't safe, or the world's not safe, and we have fear about stepping into the unknown, where we have these split intentions about following our heart and leaving our job and following our own flow of life, but then we end up with our foot back here because we're scared of not having any money, because money means survival. If I don't have money, how am I going to pay my way? We end up kind of a little bit like this. Who recognises that from the past? Yeah. And so what we want to do is we want to bulletproof ourselves so that everything gets aligned with our intentions and there's no splits and no fragments. And so what I want to do is I want to share with you how we can do that. I want to talk first up about our operating system and how we shape and create our reality. So our reality is shaped and created by three different things. Our bioenergy field. All of our information is held in this luminous field of energy, and some of you may be aware you have a bioenergy field, but when you begin to develop your bioenergy field in the same way you develop your body, then you begin to start to feel and experience with a greater degree of high sense perception, because you can begin to tune into the subtle wavelengths of energy that are happening in the field and around. It's very simple to do once you'll be more aware of your bioenergy field and the subtle energies that are going on between the invisible spaces we perceive as empty, but actually are full of information. So when you begin to work on your bioenergy field and you begin to become more aware of that, you then also begin to become aware of your consciousness. Your consciousness isn't your mind. Okay, that is a tiny fraction of who you are. The consciousness is who you are in the totality of your consciousness across all dimensions. When you begin activating your DNA and accepting these faster wavelengths into your system, you can begin to access much higher realms of consciousness and bring that through your system. And then the last piece is DNA. And so your DNA then is the script and the code which runs everything. So let's make a little metaphor here. Your DNA, consciousness and bioenergy field. It's like a holographic movie projector, okay? And that's exactly how it is. What your reality is linked exactly to what's going on internally. So, let's unpack this. Your consciousness is like the light going into the movie projector. There's one right here, right? Except it hasn't got film flipping through it. Okay? Your consciousness is the light. So, when you start in this work of spiritual growth, it's like you've got a little pen light of light, right? Not a very big light at all. Imagine a dark room, pen light. You're trying to find your way with a pen light. Okay? You can only really see this path in front of you. You can't go over. As soon as you go over here, you lose your way on your path. You can't illuminate. You see what's going on very well. Your DNA is like the film in that movie projector. So when you shine that onto your DNA is a code. It has energetic properties and physical properties. The physical properties are 3.1 billion letters, okay, rearranged many, many times to create your code. I'm going to unpack that in a minute, much more depth for you. These 3.1 billion letters, rearranged in many different ways, form the scripts which contain your life. Okay? Now, the next piece is that how your consciousness, bioenergy field, and DNA all work and shape together. We've got these kind of ways that our belief systems are formulated. Your beliefs shape and create your reality. Everything is held in wavelengths of energy, and all the outcomes you're experiencing in your life are driven by your behaviors. Underneath those behaviors come your emotions. What drives those emotions are your beliefs, which control your perceptions of the world, and what those beliefs are reading is information and energy fields. Your beliefs were formulated when you were very young, and these beliefs shape and create your reality. You want to change your reality, you have to change your belief. To find how the belief was formulated, you have to go under the belief to the unmet need. What was the unmet need that I did not receive when I was young? And usually it's going to be according to your chakras. Safety and survival of the first chakra. Connection, community, belonging of my second chakra. Self-identity, self-esteem, empowerment of the third. Love and support and softness of my fourth chakra. And then these create these what we call imprints. And these imprints then create and shape our reality. And so our whole system is like an operating system, which automatically creates these scripts of action according to the frequency which is emitted. For example, imagine if you didn't have a great developed self-esteem because your parents were very critical of you. You want to go follow your heart, but you don't have your own sense of self enough firmly established. So the first thing that we do, we look to the external for validation of what we're doing, so we are worried about other people's opinions. That's the first thing. We adjust our behaviour to please other people's opinion. Who knows that space? It's because our self-esteem hasn't been firmly anchored and identified and established into itself. So we carry what we call these imprinted programs. These are the scripts that run your life. And the scripts are a combination of this wound that was had in your bioenergy field and consciousness when you were very young. Over the top of that wound are these protections. Lower self, wall, ego, mask. Okay? And these imprints, which then create these unmet needs, then creating beliefs, so that when a like vibration presents itself in the field, your wound kicks off. And when the wound kicks off, it sets off your defenses: ego, war, self, mask, rejections, disappearing, you know. And then what happens then is that we follow these very predictive patterns set in place by the DNA, which is the code that holds it together, the neural nets, which makes the association to the frequency, slots it straight into the neural pathway, and you end up behaving in the way that you've always behaved. The only way to clear that is you have to drop all the way down to the unmet need in the wound. And when you start working on the unmet needs in the wounds, you start pulling it from the core, and then the whole thing just dissolves. And suddenly, you no longer perceive that to be a threat. And suddenly, your whole system just operates in a whole new way. And our DNA is a key piece to that. And our DNA has these physical properties and energetic properties. And just quickly on the physical, we have these 2 DNA strands. It contains these adenine, cysteine, guanine, and thymine, ACTG. ACTG is repeated 3.1 billion times in every cell. And there's around about 70 trillion cells. So you've got 3.1 billion times 70 trillion is enough code, if you were to type it out on the computer, to go around the Earth 5,000 times. That is the script. Now, these templates, science says that 96% of the human genome code, of that code ACTG, is not used to code proteins. It's junk DNA. Yeah, right. It's kind of like going into the into an island, back in the 1600s, seeing a beautiful stereo system, these 2 speakers and a stereo in the middle, and you come into the stereo and you hear this beautiful music, and you work out the music's coming from the speakers, so you deduce the middle piece, the console, was useless, and you throw it away. Okay, it's kind of like the music stops, right? So those, they actually, what science has found and what I've uncovered in my explorations is that code is actually the organizing principle of the coding proteins. The proteins that, the DNA that codes the proteins and tells the proteins what to do and how to make and create and shape reality is held in place by the template of the non-coding DNA. The non-coding DNA is built off the morphogenic fields held in your DNA. So the energy around your DNA tells the non-coding proteins how to interact, how to hold themselves. It's like the it's like the punctuation marks in the alphabet. If you were to take 2,000 letters and put them all together in a sentence with no punctuation, no spaces, hard to read, right? But when you put the punctuation and the full stops, the capital letters, the commas, suddenly the sentences pop, you can read the code. Well, what the non-coding 96% DNA is like the punctuation. It tells the coding protein what to do, and you can directly program that through sound, vibration, light, because they are held together by the morphogenic field in your DNA. So we can start to change our DNA scripts and codes for our life when we understand the mathematical precision of the language of the universe. Sound, vibration, light, colour, form, geometry, fed into our DNA. Now, our DNA has these incredible energetic properties, and there's been a few inorganic inserts into them that I'm not going to go into too much because I'm running out of time, but you can go further with me on this little journey if you want to opt in, where you can start removing these energetic portions which will spontaneously start opening up your energetic properties of your DNA to be able to receive more wavelengths of light, because we've got the potential for 12 energetic portions of our DNA, where most people are only operating with 3 or 4. And this is known as the angelic diamond sun DNA template, where we have 12 strands of DNA potential operating with these vector codes. 12 strands of DNA. The mother side, the mother side, where we pick up our mother's imprints. The father side, which we pick up our father's imprints. And we have each 12 strand. Each strand of helix is known as a 5-letter. We start to activate these 5-letter sequences and activate the energetic portions. We very easily are able to start accreting more light into our DNA template, and all that's happened to humanity is we've had severe genetic digression of our angelic DNA divine potential. Our original design in our founder races from millions of years ago was biological immortality, and to ascend biological immortality through our DNA template, but it's had a lot of corruption because of other beings who have inserted things into us to keep our consciousness capped. Now we're entering into an eon of time where our consciousness is evolving and we're moving upwards and we're spontaneously awakening, and there are many people on the planet like myself who are waking up of exactly what to do. And then other people who are feeling in resonance with that can follow those processes and really start to accelerate, because when you work on the level of DNA, consciousness and bioenergy field all at the same time, you won't believe how fast you go. Now, this is just a diagrammatic example of a DNA template. Three strands of DNA are creating 3 dimensions of consciousness. What would happen if you had 6 strands of DNA active? How many dimensions of consciousness would you be accreting? 6. 8 strands, 8 dimensions. 12 strands, 12 dimensions of consciousness, activating avatar consciousness. Okay, now, that is why we want to do that, because you imagine that much light coming into your DNA. That's why I'm quite shiny, because I've activated my DNA and I really work on myself. I take an hour every day. Okay? It's only because there's so much light coming into my DNA. That's it. My biophotonic light emission from my DNA is highly coherent. That's why it's easy for me to manifest, because I just hold an intention and then it creates the right vibrations of light and just comes towards me. I don't have to chase it. I can teach you how to do that. It's very simple, but you have to be dedicated. That's it. You just have to, follow a process, and if you're dedicated, you're going to go very far. Now, just to finish off, there's these different energetic DNA properties according to different consciousness fields which populate them. We have Earth seeds who have had their consciousness first established on our planet. Okay, and they have a 12-strand DNA matrix. Then we have star seeds, and I gave a talk in the previous stage about the star seed mission, where beings who have had their consciousness established in stars have come into the planet to help and support our planet. They have an expanded DNA potential, and there's a few different potentials of DNA. These are some codings of this one. They're the first group is what I call the equalizers. The equalizers are here to counterbalance a 10-strand DNA template and take it up to 12-strand. This is quite a challenging path. These are the beings who have quite often got ADD and these types of things, and all the frequencies that they get stuck in, they have to reactivate that and harmonise. And they're here to rehabilitate a 10-strand DNA potential up to 12. We have the next type, which are kind of what I call the geneticists. These are kind of what I would call healers. People who are naturally born to the healing arts are usually got an expanded DNA template. They have a 24-strand potential, so they can access double light. And then we have the architects, which are more people who are going to work on land, and they have a 48-strand potential of their DNA. And so when they're coming in from these different stars, these people are being brought into the planet to be able to accelerate evolution and consciousness through what they're going to bring forth on the earth. Some of you here are star seeds. Who knows they're a star seed? Who knows about their consciousness established? You know, if you're a star seed, if you go growing up in your home going, what the hell am I doing here? These people are freaking aliens. Seriously, what is this? Where am I? Why am I here? Okay, so if that's resonating with you, most likely you have had your consciousness established, and hopefully this starts to key in some of those memories for you. You can start to chase that. And so the path is we start to activate our DNA, work on our bioenergy for the consciousness, we go cleansing, we start exercising, we get our things together, work on our avatar so we can start to stream this new broadcast, the externalization of the Christ consciousness which is streaming to the planet as a broadcast signal, right? If you're not on the right wavelength, are you going to receive it? No. You're going to miss the whole thing. So seeing it's here, we might as well use it, right? And so it's just about being committed, and eventually over time, if you start to form the rituals, this is you need to ingrain yourself with a habit. And it starts, I feel, by getting up and out earlier than where you need to be and making it happen for yourself so you're in the right vibrationally, harmonically aligned state to your purpose. And so then what we start doing is we start taking personal responsibility for our consciousness. We go through and start cleaning up our family genetics. We access the constellations of our family, of our ancestors, because they've done behaviours in divine right alignment, outside of alignment. And then we start working on our consciousness. And when you do those things there, and you start working on your soul consciousness and your bioenergy field and your DNA template, understanding the principles and the language of the matrix, you start making very accelerated processes. These are some of the codes that we've started working with. I just want to jump ahead because my time is almost closing. And the main thing is to reprogram your operating system. You do that, everything's going to start changing. Then your purpose will start being connected with what you're here to do, and you'll start making changes on the planet, because we need you guys to start raising your vibration, expanding the love consciousness that you're feeling, and implement it directly into your families and then into your projects. And when we do that, we change the planet. Okay? Thank you very much. Cristof.love Unchained, if you want to get started on that, I'm going to send you some information, Cristof.love/Unchained, and I'll help you with the fast track on that.
And Anarchapulco, it's so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't wanna miss it. You should roll through. Talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.